Hi Michel. Hi Kevin. How are you?
We're fine.
Good. I have two personal questions for you. Michel, you have been involved for a long time in your research work as an activist, as a founder of the P2P Foundation on the topic of the commons and peer-to-peer. How did that all start?
Well, at the end of the 90s, I was working for big companies, two startups and then a big company, a telecommunications company. And so what I was kind of watching was that the world was not going in a good direction. So, the environmental issues were getting worse and worse, the social inequality is growing. But also inside these companies, the psychological situation is deteriorating. Like everybody was working till 9 o'clock. And when even the elite doesn't live well anymore, I think the system is really wrong. So I guess at some point I just basically couldn't stand it anymore, and I felt that I had to do something about the state of the world as a citizen, and that the change would not come from business, would not come from government, would come from civil society. Eventually big organizations will adapt eventually, but they are not giving the impulses that are needed to bring change. So I felt I had to go back to civil society, and I took a 2-year sabbatical. And basically I studied what I call phase transition. So I wanted to know how societies change from one system to another. Let's say the Roman Empire based on slavery to the feudal system based on serfs, the feudal system based on serfs to the system of capitalism based on labor and capital. So I wanted to know how that change really happened, without any kind of prejudging from any theory or ideology. And at the end of those 2 years, I created the P2P Foundation because I had decided that this peer-to-peer dynamic, the fact that now it's so much more easy for people to communicate, self-organize, and actually organize value creation together, that I thought this is the way we have to work on it, on the change this time.
So basically you felt unhappy in your work and you thought, I want a life change?
Yes, I think most people who are engaged like me, they probably go through some dark night of the soul, as it were. Some moment in your life where you just don't see any light. And it's precisely because you don't see any way forward that you have to go back to your deeper issues and character and subjectivity and say, what am I about really? And it's called a midlife crisis maybe, but when you reach a certain age and you haven't done yet what you really, really wanted to do, it's kind of a now or never situation. So at that moment you need to make a decision. If you want to be part of the solution and engage yourself, then you need to move before it's too late.
How was that for you, Kevin? Where did it all start for you? Kevin, you're an activist, artist, community coordinator for the Peer-to-Peer Foundation. Where did your interest in peer-to-peer and the commons start? How?
Yeah, my interest started as an art student, and really I quite a good experience as an art student in art college, because while I didn't have a good experience in school, in art college I was encouraged to go and think about the artwork you're making and why you're making it, and what's the purpose, is there a purpose behind it. And they said go down there to the library and just read what you like, and I discovered that when I started to learn about art, that all these artists, they were responding to this sort of social and historical context, and the change in aesthetics were responding to those things. And so I realized that art is it's a social object. Even though an artist might be working in their own place, it's hugely influenced by the things that are changing in society. And as a social object, what is its place and what is its role? And I think, so I started looking at copyleft and Creative Commons. Well, I started doing remixing video and advertisements and all sorts of things. And then somebody said, no, you can't do that. You're not allowed, that's copyright. I thought, oh my God. So there's this whole space visual culture that and visual language that we're exposed to on a daily basis that we're not allowed to engage with. Oh no, that's hands off. And I just thought, that's just very strange. You know, it's like, you know, for me, it's like a language that you're not allowed to speak. You can only be spoken to. So art is for me like a social object, and I really started to engage with the commons around copyleft and Creative Commons, and I discovered open source, and I always had an interest in technology and computers and things like that. So I was, interestingly enough, I was in India in 2006. I also have an interest in sort of spirituality and different cultures. I was in India in 2006, and I came across this Ken Wilber, and I hadn't discovered. Ken Wilber is like an integral theorist about spirituality, and he sort of looks at different spiritual traditions in, you know, all together, and says, is there a contemporary way of thinking about these things? And I thought, okay, oh, this is quite interesting. And I thought, I wonder, because, you know, in the art sphere, you often think about there's often somebody who's written a critique, and I said, oh, I wonder, is there any critique of Ken Wilber? And I typed it in the internet, and who came up? Michel Bauwens. And so I discovered Michel and the P2P Foundation. But I also discovered that Michel had a big interest in the politics and open source and peer-to-peer dynamics. So I thought, okay, I have something in common with these guys. And so that's how I first encountered the P2P Foundation. And it was some time before I began to sort of contribute, but it was a really big influence. I learned a lot from Michel, and all the network that we're contributing to the foundation really had a big influence in shaping my own ideas around politics and society and stuff like that. So that's
It's your story.
Yeah.
Another thing that is interesting to me is how the commons is integrated in your daily lives. Because you work in it, you research it, you advocate for it, but how does it affect your personal lives? For example, in your hometown. So look at the hometown as something symbolic of your personal life, right? You live in Chiang Mai. How is that for you in your city?
Well, you know, maybe just to start, I have two commons in my life, and one is the P2P Foundation itself, because we peer produce knowledge about peer production. So by doing that, we have the same processes as free software, shared design practices. So we know what peer production is because we're doing it ourselves. So that's the professional side, as it were. But at home, it's really special because I live with an extended family of my Thai wife. And as strange as it may sound, it's really a family commons. Mm-hmm. You know, I moved to Thailand about 15 years ago. And, you know, I was a rich white guy, at least in their eyes. And so I arrived there with, you know, no place to go really. And I stayed with an aunt of my wife for 2 years. And they fed us, and they didn't ask for rent. And so even if I wanted to, they would not accept anything. Then I built a house. And of course, 5-6 nephews came to live with us. Mm-hmm. Then I went broke, and the whole family just kept providing us with food and, you know, anything we needed basically. So, you know, it's really a commons, the family, and it's not like, so this aunt gives it to me, but it's not as a person. I don't have to give anything to her especially. It's just a commitment that if anybody in the family is in trouble, I will also help them. Yes, a relational commons. And so for me, you know, to define a commons is a relation between an individual and a whole. Mm-hmm. It's not from individual to individual like in a market exchange or even the gift economy where, you know, I give you something and somehow you feel obligated to give me something back eventually. So the family in Thailand, the extended family, is a real commons.
Okay. What about you, Kevin? How is that for you? In Ireland, what's your home city?
Yeah, my hometown is Galway. I would say, likewise, I've a very strong family connection, and I've seen. I think it's a little bit that this idea of the, you know, that homo economicus, this like only out for your own self-interest. It doesn't work for me, you know, because I've seen it, I've experienced it in my own life, in my own family. I've got a big extended family, and many people stayed in the city. And for example, my grandmother, she's 87 now. There's always somebody to care for her. She doesn't have to go to a home or anything like that. There's always somebody there to take care of her, to go into the house, to prepare meals, and you know. So she's there's really a social network there. That everybody takes care of each other. But also in the community in Galway, like from a young age, so Galway is a little bit like the cultural city in Ireland. It has a strong cultural community. There was when I was young, there was always these festivals, the arts festival, and there was a parade, and all the community would a lot of the community would get involved, and the kids would be involved in the parade, getting dressed up in costumes and all these things. So that's another area where I experienced sort of a communal connection, yeah, and that's still very much there. There's a strong musical culture as well, and of course people come together and play music on the streets. And for me, that's, in that sense, actually the streets of the city are kind of like a commons. They really are a very social space, you know. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing your personal inspirations.